Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. For today's tutorial, we're making a single strap dress. For this dress, we've got a double dose of asymmetry with the aforementioned single strap, flirty hike, and because less is more, not much else. Minimalist perfection. Speaking of, if you're looking for modern minimalist designs, you are in the perfect place. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns with more dropping weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 315 grams of yarn, and that's 700 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5 and 5.5 millimeter hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you have ever tried Tunisian crochet. I haven't intentionally, but I think I figured it out by accident a few videos ago. Details for the giveaway down below. We are using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for size small, but you can adjust it for your size and explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this dress started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're all going to grab our 5.5 millimeter hook. Then we're all going to start by making an even number chain that starts 1 inch underneath our underarm down to the length of the highest part of our dress. So you can make this right underneath the booty, mid-thigh, that's completely up to you. I'd like for mine to be roughly 20.5 inches or 52 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 80. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to get started on our first row, which is going to be a single crochet row. But we are going to be increasing along the edges. So how we're going to do that is block off that last chain and start with a chain 3. That chain 3 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we're all going to start with a double crochet into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook. So yarn over, insert your hook into that 4th chain from our hook or into that chain that we blocked off, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That is our first double crochet. Now we're going to be doing a half double crochet and single crochet into that same first chain. So yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet, into that same first chain, pull through all 3, and then into that same chain with 1 single crochet. So pull through 2. Now that is our increase. We are going to want to insert a stitch marker into the edge of this row on this side, and the stitch marker side will be the bottom of our piece. Now from here, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every chain, leaving the last one. So just into that following chain, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Again, into that next chain, insert, pull through 2. I will meet you back when we have just 1 chain left. But right before we do that, as a really quick tip, we are starting and ending off our row with an increase of 3 because each of our rows needs to end on an even number. And we're doing our increases the way that we're doing our increases, because if we just do an increase of 3 single crochets, that would actually make our increases start to curve on us. So we just want to add a little bit more height to keep it as straight as possible. We are back. We have made our way all the way down with our single crochets, leaving our last chain. Now, like I said in our previous clip, we're going to need to end it with an increase as well. So this increase into that last chain is going to be a single, a half double, and a double, all into that same last chain. So insert with a single, insert again with a half double, and then once more with a double crochet. And now our row 1 is complete, and just as a really quick tip, we should all have 4 more stitches than chains that we made. Now the row sequence for this piece is going to be a single and 2 moss stitch rows. So let's get started on our moss stitch row. Whenever we're about to start a moss stitch row, we're always going to do a chain 2. That first chain is going to count as our turning chain. Then that second chain is going to count as a chain. That'll make more sense in a second, and then we're going to flip our work. Now what we're going to do is skip that first stitch from our previous row, and then into the following, insert with a single crochet. So skip 1, into that following with a single crochet. Now all together we should have our first chain space. It may be a little hard to see because it may have collapsed in on us, but here is 1 and then here's 2. So far for this row we should have 1, 2 stitches, and we're just going to continue to do that. So again, chain 1, skip 1 stitch into the following with a single crochet. Now again we should have our first chain space, our first single crochet, our second chain space, and our second single crochet. So altogether we should have a total of 4 stitches for this row so far. And just once more, we're going to chain 1, skip a stitch, into the next with a single crochet. Just to make sure we all got it down, we should have our first chain space, which may be a little hard to see, but there's 1, 2, which is our single crochet, 3 is a chain space, 4 is a single crochet, 5 is a chain space, 6 is a single crochet, so altogether we should have 6 stitches. We're going to continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet into the next until we reach the end of the row, and we should have the same amount of stitches as our previous row. Alright, so we are back. We have made our way all the way down with our row 2, which was our first moss stitch row. Now we're going to be doing one more moss stitch row, and it's going to be done exactly the same way as the previous one, so let's get that started. Like I said, to start every moss stitch row, we're always going to chain 2. First chain is going to count as our turning chain, second chain is going to count as our chain, and flip our work. Now when it comes to doing our second moss stitch row, we are still going to skip a stitch and single crochet into the next, and now we're going to be single crocheting into every chain space. So skip that first stitch, which is the last stitch from our previous row, so a single crochet, into the next with a single crochet. Now all together we should have our first chain space, which may be a little hard to see, and then our single crochet. So far we should all have 2 stitches for this row. And just once more, chain 1, skip a stitch, which is our single crochet from our previous row, into the next with a single crochet. So we should all have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches for this row so far. Continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, and into the next, single crochet to reach the end of the row. And we should have the same amount of rows as our previous row, again for this row. We are back, and we should all have 1, 2, 3 rows complete. Now for this portion of our piece, which is the underarm, it's going to be a 3-row repeat. So just as a reminder, let's get started on our following single crochet row. So since we're all working on our row 4, we're all going to chain 3, preparing for our increase, and flip our work. We're going to start this row, which should be a single crochet row with an increase. So into that first stitch, a double crochet, a half double crochet, and a single crochet all into that same first stitch. Then from here, 1 single crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one. We are now at the end of our row 4 and have left the last stitch. Now it may not look like we have 1 stitch left, but like I said, the first chain space can collapse in on us. But if you just separate it, that little gap right there is that chain space. So what we're going to do from here is the same increase that we ended with for our row 1. So that's going to be a single, a half double, and double crochet. So into that chain space, there you go, that's easier to see. Insert with a single, a half double, and a double crochet. And just as a really quick tip, so that we all know if we're doing our single crochet rows right, every single crochet row should have 4 more stitches than our previous row, and every row should end on an even number of stitches. Now that our single crochet row is finished up, we're going to be doing our 2 moss stitch rows, but since they're done pretty much the same way, I'm just going to get started on the following row with you. So like I said, getting started on every moss stitch row, we're all going to chain 2. First chain counts as our turning chain, second chain counts as our chain, and flip. We're all going to skip that first stitch, and into that second, insert with a single crochet, and that forms our first chain space and single crochet. Then continue to chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet to reach the end of the row. Once we reach the end of the row, we're all going to chain 2, flip our work, and then do our second moss stitch row. Now from here, we're all going to continue to repeat our 3 previous rows. So as a refresher, our single crochet row is going to start and end with an increase of 3, the same way that we did here, and then 2 moss stitch rows after that, until we have a portion that can reach from mid underarm over to the front of our body. So the top corner point should be roughly where a bra strap or a tank top strap would be. Now we're all going to end after our second moss stitch row that ends along the top. Now a really quick tip, since this is a 3-row repeat, some of our second moss stitch rows will end along the bottom. If that's the case, you get to decide to do an additional 3 rows to make sure that our moss stitch row ends along the top, or take away 3 rows to also make sure that our moss stitch row ends along the top, because once when it ends along the top, we can work straight into our 1 shoulder strap from there. But once we have that finished up, I'll meet you guys back so that we can make that shoulder chain together. Alright, so we are back with our underarm. I have a total of 9 rows complete. My width is roughly 2 inches or 4 centimeters. And now from here, since we all should have ended along the top right after our second moss stitch row, we're now going to make an even number chain that reaches all the way up to the top of our shoulder. Now I have already measured mine out. I need roughly 5 inches or 8 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 20. And now that we have our chain, we're all going to do the following row in our row sequence, which is a single crochet row. So block off that last chain and chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off with a second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with 1 single crochet. And from here, just continue with 1 single crochet into every chain. And then once we reach the body, 1 single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way down, leaving the last stitch so that we can increase together. So we are back. We have made our way all the way down to the end of our strap row. And now we're going to do our increase since we are along the bottom. So the increase is going to be done pretty much the same way. So into that last stitch, it doesn't look like I have one, but we do have 1 chain space left. I'm going to insert with a single, a half double, and a double crochet, and that will be the end of this strap row. Now we're only going to have 1 strap row, so now from here we're going to get started on the chest. So now that our 1 strap row is complete, we're going to get started on our chest portion. But first things first, we're all going to need to insert our stitch marker into any even numbered stitch from the top, right where we want the chest portion to start. So I would suggest around mid-sternum, and it does need to be in an even number of stitches. So I've actually inserted my stitch marker into the 18th stitch from the top, and that's roughly 5 inches or 13 centimeters. From here, we're going to get started on our first moss stitch row. So since we're along the bottom, chain 2 and flip. Make your way up with our moss stitch row till our last stitch is worked into the stitch right before our stitch marker. So we've just made our way all the way up with our first moss stitch row. We have stopped right at our stitch marker, so I just wanted to show you guys what that looked like. Now chain 2, flip your work to our following moss stitch row, and then I'll meet you guys back at the end of that row. We are back. We have just finished up our first 2 moss stitch rows for the neckline portion. Now we're going to get started on the following row in our row sequence, which is a single crochet row. So since we're along the bottom, we're going to start it with an increase of 3. That's going to be a double, half double, single, all into that same first stitch. Then 1 single crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 3, and then we're going to do a decrease of 3 together along the top. So I've made my way all the way down with my single crochet row, leaving my last 1, 2, 3, it's collapsed, but 3 stitches left. And now since we're along the top, we're going to do a decrease of 3 single crochets so that we can get a really smooth curve. So into that third to last, pull through, into that second to last, pull through, and into that last, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4. Then this single crochet row is complete. Now from here, it's going to be a repeat of our 3 previous rows until this top row reaches roughly 2 inches underneath our underarm, and we all want to make sure that we're saving those 2 inches for the top band that we're going to do later on in the pattern. But since this is a 3-row repeat, some of our rows are going to end with a decrease of 3 single crochets, just like how this row is, or some of our single crochet rows is going to start with our decrease of 3. So what we're all going to do from here is do our 2 following moss stitch rows. Those aren't going to have any increases or decreases. And then I'll meet you guys back once we're about to get started on the following single crochet row, which should start along the top. Alrighty, so we are back. We should all have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of our chest all finished up so far. Now we're about to get started on the 6th, which is our single crochet row. But like I said, we should all be along the top, and now it's going to start with a decrease of 3 single crochets, 1 single crochet into every stitch, and then end with an increase the same way that we've been doing our increases. So just to get that started, since we're along the top, we're going to chain 1 and flip. Now to do our decrease of 3, we're all going to start by inserting our hook into that first stitch, pull through into that next stitch, pull through and into the stitch after that, pull through. We should have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, then 1 single crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one. We are now at the end of our single crochet row, and we're going to close it off with an increase the same way that we've been doing. So into that last stitch, which doesn't look like I have a last stitch, but it is there, I promise, we're going to insert with a single, half double, and double, and that's it. From here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat our 6 previous rows, which every row should have the same amount of even number stitches, by the way, until we have a portion where the top, so this row right here, reaches about 2 inches underneath our underarm. And then once we do, I will meet you back after your second moss stitch row that again ends along the top so that we can finish up the rest of our front panel from there. Alrighty, so we are back. I now have the first portion of my neckline all finished up, and I have a total of 27 rows. My width is roughly 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. This top portion that I have right here runs about 2 inches underneath my underarm, so we are good to go. And I have ended right after my second moss stitch row that ends along the top. Now from here, we're going to continue to repeat our row sequence, but we aren't going to be doing any more increases or decreases along the top. It's just going to cut straight through. But we are still going to maintain the increases along the bottom of our piece for only our single crochet row. So let's get started on the next row. Our following row is going to be a single crochet row, so we're all going to chain 1 and flip. Put 1 single crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one. We are at the end of our single crochet row, so all we're going to do into that last stitch, a single, a half double, and a double. Now at the end of this row, we should have 2 additional stitches from our previous row. From here, we're all going to do our following 2 moss stitch rows with no increases and no decreases, so the same way that we've been doing them. And then the following single crochet row is going to start along the bottom. So since we already know how to do that, I'm just going to talk you guys through it. At the end of our second moss stitch row, we're going to chain 3, flip our work, do our increase of 3, so it's going to be a double, half double, single all into that first stitch, and then 1 single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way up, remembering that we're not doing any more increases or decreases along the top because we're keeping that blunt. Now we're just going to continue to repeat these rows until we have a portion that can reach all the way across our chest over to mid underarm on the other side. And every single crochet row will have 2 additional stitches from our previous row because of the increases that we're doing along the bottom. Once we have that, I will meet you guys back. Alright, so we are back. The entirety of my front panel is complete. I have a total of 63 rows and my width is roughly 14 inches or 35 centimeters. Now once we have one of our pieces all finished up, we're going to be doing one more that is exactly the same. And once we have our second one completed, I'll meet you guys back so we can seam it all up together. So don't do a chain up of 1 and cut. So we are back. Both our front and back panel are completed, and now we're going to seam it up together. So first things first, we're going to place our front panel on top of our back panel, and then we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through everything on our hook, and then we're going to do a single crochet seam. So start by finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert, first stitch into the back panel, insert, and if you're like me, you have a tail end, go ahead and place that over your hook, and then single crochet around everything. Let's do that again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert, next stitch into the back panel, insert, and single. And we're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we just did here on the other side, but keeping in mind that the underarm portion of our piece may not have the same amount of stitches as this portion that we're doing right here. Alright, so we are back. Everything is all seamed up, and now we're ready to get started on the prep that we need to do for our top band. So first things first, we're all going to switch out to our 5mm hook and make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning all the seams that we just did are along the inside. Then we're going to be inserting our hook into the last stitch that we have into the strap that our first row is coming out of. So insert your hook in through there, and now we're going to do a single crochet row. So start by inserting your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And all we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side row. We're all going to start by inserting our hook into our first side row, which should be a moss stitch row for everyone, so find that top loop, insert into there with one single crochet. Next, into our following side row should be another moss stitch row, insert into there with another single crochet. This is my following side row, which is a side single crochet row. Find that top loop and insert with one single crochet. That's basically it. Just continue with one single crochet into every side row, making our way all the way around until we reach the strap on the back panel. Once we do, I'll meet you back to show you where we're going to insert to finish off this row. So we're back. We've made our way all the way around with our single crochet row. Now we're going to slip stitch it into that same stitch that our chest row is coming out of into the strap. So insert in through there with a slip stitch. That slip stitch does not count as a stitch. Now we're going to do a chain up of one and cut, and then we can get started on the top band. Now getting started on the top band, we're going to need to seam the shoulder strap first. So start by flipping your work wrong side out, meaning all the seams are along the outside. Then make sure our straps aren't twisted, then insert your hook into the top stitch of our straps. We are going to pull through, do a chain up of one to secure, then we're going to put one single crochet into the same side row. Then flip our work right side out, and then we can get started on the top border. And now our strap is nice and secure. Now we're going to work along the inside of our piece with our strap. So let's all start by making a chain the length that we'd like for our strap to be. Now we did leave roughly 2 inches for the strap when we went in with the front and back panel. So we should all make a chain that is roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 7. Once we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 3. That chain 3 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain, and now we're going to do a double crochet into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook. So yarn over, into that chain we're going to insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That is our first double crochet, and continue with one double crochet into every chain. Now we've just put one double crochet into every chain. We're going to connect it into the base, making sure that we're working our way across the front of our dress. So we're all going to start by counting up the next 2 available stitches into our strap. So there's 1, there's 2. Insert your hook into that 2nd stitch with a slip stitch. That slip stitch does not count as a stitch. Then we need to work our way up to the following row, which is another double crochet row. So slip stitch up the following 2 stitches into the base as well. Those 2 slip stitches also do not count as a stitch. That's just to work our way up. And then flip our work. And now put one back loop double crochet into every stitch. So we're all going to yarn over. Find the last stitch from our previous row, making sure it's not into any of those slip stitches. Yarn over. Insert into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us with our first back loop double crochet. And to do one more, yarn over. Into that next stitch's back loop. Insert, pull through 2, pull through 2. And continue with one back loop double crochet into every stitch. So at the end of this row, chain 3, flip your work, put one back loop double crochet into every stitch, making our way back down towards the base, and then I'll meet you back so we can connect it once more. So we are back. Our first 1, 2, 3 rows are nearly complete. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So connecting our row 3 into the base is going to be done pretty much the same way that we connected our row 1. So we're all going to start by counting up the next 2 available stitches. So there's 1, there's 2, slip stitch into that 2nd stitch to close off our row 3. Then to work our way up to the following row, just like how we did previously, slip stitch up the following 2 stitches into the base. So there's 1, there's 2, none of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch. Flip our work, and then one back loop double crochet into every stitch, and that's it. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 2 rows with no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way around. Now we don't have any more stitches left to work into. I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. Alrighty, so we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our back loop double crochet top band. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam everything up. So we're all going to start by making sure that our work is flipped wrong side out. We do want to make sure that our strap isn't twisted. And then we're all going to insert our hook into the first stitch, into the front panel, and then into the first stitch, into the back panel, and then we're going to single crochet everything together. So yarn over, pull through 2. And this is going to be the same seam that we did for the sides, so just continue this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. Alright, so we are back. Our top band is all seamed up, and now we're going to single crochet just on top of our underarm portion just to clean it up, and then we'll be all done. So what we're all going to do is insert our same 5mm hook into the corner stitch that we have in between the top band and the underarm. Then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now all we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side moss stitch row, and then 2 single crochets into every side single crochet row, and we're doing 2 single crochets into the side single crochet row because the last stitch that we should have in the side single crochet rows should be a double crochet, and we don't want to miss out on that measurement. So let's just do the first few together. Everyone's first side row should be a side moss stitch row, so we're just going to find that top loop, insert our hook in through there with 1 single crochet. Into everyone's following row should be another side moss stitch row. Insert your hook into there with a second single crochet, and then our next row is a side single crochet row, so find that top loop, which is this side double crochet right here, and insert into there with 2 single crochets. There's 1, and into that same top loop with 2, and that's basically it. We're going to continue on with this, making our way all the way down, and then back up our underarm, and then we're going to slip stitch it into that corner stitch that we have in between the strap and the underarm, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. So we are back. We have just single crocheted across the top of our underarm portion, and we're all done. Last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.